Well, we're now being joined by Adam Schwartz from London. Adam's a writer, political commentator. Many thanks for your time this morning, Adam. Rishi Sunak, of course, will be urging his MPs to be backing his Rwanda plan as it faces that final parliamentary showdown. How do you expect this to play out?
Well, I think I'd very much expect the bill to ultimately pass, but I think it's worth really considering that this bill is not simply an ordinary piece of legislation, but this is really part of the government's sort of hallmark signature policy, which is the Rwanda plan, which has really, been the government's sort of central policy since, as you mentioned, Boris Johnson first tried to introduce the initiative in the summer of 2022. I think these series of problems that the bill has had in the House of Lords are really just a part of a series of challenges that the government has faced with this particular policy. Now, this particular bill, the Safety of Rwanda bill, essentially seeks to try to sort of overrule or contradict the Supreme Court's ruling last year that Rwanda wasn't a safe country, which sort of caused the scheme major problems because essentially it relies on Rwanda being considered a safe country to be legal. So I think it certainly has sort of constitutional questionable issues in that aspect. But despite that fact, Conservative MPs seem to have been overwhelmingly supportive of the bill, despite some sort of rebellions and amendments the last time it was trying to get through. But still, I would very much expect it to pass. But I think it's worth considering that even if and when it does pass, that actually the law will still face considerable legal challenges. James Cleverly, the Home Secretary, said clearly in Parliament repeatedly that he thinks that the bill is compatible with international law, but on the front page of the bill, it in fact says that the government is not able to confirm that it is compatible with European Convention on Human Rights conventions, which of course is international law. So I think certainly we'll face further judicial problems. And the issue for the government really is that, the last time that the government had problems in the courts with this particular bill, it took a year and a half for it to be properly processed. Now, the next election has to be held by January 2025, which is only sort of 7 or 8 months away. And so certainly there's basically no time for that to happen again, for a conclusion to the bill. I think certainly the Supreme Court is very unlikely to sort of expedite this issue simply for the government's convenience. But I think it's really important as well just to remember that actually this isn't simply a normal policy, but actually it's very much, I think, can be considered as sort of a taxpayer-funded political publicity stunt, in the sense that really the outcome of this bill, this law, is not intended to be sort of governmental, but rather political. And I think, Rishi Sunak is due to hold a press conference a little bit later to try to drum up support for this bill. And I think you can really expect him to kind of tap into those narratives of the kind of people's interests on the one hand with the Rwanda bill versus the kind of establishment's interests trying to frustrate the Rwanda bill. So I think ultimately this is for, political convenience, this whole scheme.
Adam, do you expect to see a flight to Rwanda before the general election?
I certainly wouldn't, and legal experts certainly don't as well. I think that is something the government would like to see, because I think it would show some degree of success that it happened. But I think, as I mentioned, there are so many legal challenges that await this bill and this law after it's passed that it's so unlikely that actually all of those would be resolved by the time of the next election that would even be possible. I think that really comes to the heart of what the problems of this bill are, and that is the fact that it's both highly unlikely to be legal and also just very impractical. I think the reality is, the government has spent almost £500 million on this scheme already with agreements with Rwanda, and not a single asylum seeker or refugee has actually been sent to Rwanda, which really shows that it actually would deliver astonishingly bad value for money. But I think really, again, at the heart of the problem is that actually doesn't really make any sense, the bill, because the government has repeatedly insisted to both the courts and the public that Rwanda would be a terrific place for the welfare of the people sent there because of so many job opportunities and prospects. But the reality is, how would something serve as a deterrent if it was such a brilliant place to be sent to in terms of the kind of accommodation and opportunities that would be provided? So I certainly wouldn't expect flights to be taking off before the time of the next election, which, as we know, will have to take place before January 2025.
Adam Schwartz, political commentator from London. Many thanks there for that detailed insight.